Good evening and welcome to Open Your Mind Radio. You have myself, Alan James.
And you have myself, Stephen George. A very good evening, and we want to apologise for the slightly late start. We have a very good excuse.
We do. We're just having a problem with the encoders for TNS there, so we're just asking the chaps at TNS to do a rebroadcast through their system there. Steve is just having a quick look at it now, but for some reason they're just not playing ball. Don't know why. But anyway, good evening. It's Sunday the 23rd of September 2012, and we have a few things to talk about tonight. A guest on tonight's show is going to be Kevin Annett. Kevin's going to be coming on in a few minutes' time to give us an update on what he's been up to and what things he's been doing. But for now, what we'll do is we'll talk about the communication channels. Do you want me to talk about that, Steve, or do you want to take that?
I'll go on, so you may as well.
Oh, I may as well. Okay. Communication channels are, you can email us on info@oymireland.com. We also have the chat facility available on the website. Now, you probably noticed, some of you might have noticed that when you go to the OYM website, on the top left is the Ustream player. But just underneath, we've put in a clickable go to live chats because people were having difficulty just finding the chat. So we have a button now that brings you to the live chat. So you can do that if you want to go into the chat. We have the guest book as well. If you fancy leaving a message for us, you can go on the guest book there as well and add a comment. And the telephone number is 046 927 1212. Now, unfortunately, we normally have the telephone free, but Kevin has actually dialed in and Kevin's on the actual phone number. So we won't be able to take any calls. But if you do want to Skype in, and you want to come in on Skype and talk to our guest, by all means, you can send us a connection document to Skype, which is OYM.Ireland, or just go on the chat facility if you have any questions. Just go on the chat facility and leave the message there, and we can ask Kevin. Now, just a couple of things that we're going to go through before we get Kevin on. Again, donations. The donations, it's going up slowly, but thanks a lot for, clicking on the adverts and stuff like that. It's going up a little bit. But for any donations on the website for the frequency counter as well, if you have €2 or €3, €4, whatever you might have, I know things are tight for people at the moment, but if you have anything there, by all means, we'd appreciate that. We just want to try and get the RF, the frequency counter for the RF detector. So once we have that, then we can do the training with Lars and with Jesse. So if we could do that, that'd be fantastic. And the other thing is that the podcasts, our podcasts for all the shows that we've done. Now, we found a home on the internet for all the podcasts, and they are now available 24/7. We did only have them available up to from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. during the evening, during the day. But now they're available 24/7, and it's all the shows from show 1 up to last week. Okay, so you can get all the podcasts of all our shows. And you have to be a registered user, by the way. To get at the podcast, you need to register on the site. When you register, there'll be a podcast menu specifically just for the podcasts, and then you can decide which one you want of the podcasts, and you can select it from there.
And it's completely free. There's no charge.
Completely free.
And if you do happen to listen to podcast number 1, please be kind in your criticism. It was the very, very first one we ever did. We were kind of newbies at this, so.
Actually, podcast 1 to 10.
1 to 10, yeah.
I'd even go as far as podcast 1 to 10. Because we were newbies at it. So if you go to show 1, it was very new. But, we put it up there from a nostalgic point of view. So if you want to listen to it and see what you think. But there's been a few changes along the way. We still, muck up on things and have issues with technology. But that's,
but we can cover it up better.
We can cover it up. But that's never going to change, is it? That's never going to change.
We don't pretend to be anything else but what we are.
Yeah, exactly. Now, we hope that the audio is going to be okay for you guys, because we do have audio meters at the moment which we're monitoring on both systems here, and we're checking the audio levels. We want to make sure that everything's kind of tickety-boo. So hopefully all the audio is okay from your end. Now, Steve, how was your week?
My week has been fine. I won't say it's been a busy week. It's been an interesting week because we have there's a proposed there's a referendum that's going to be coming up in November in relation to one of the articles in the Irish Constitution, and that they want to kind of ratify these kind of changes to that particular article. And I've been kind of doing my homework and basically trying to find out exactly what they are proposing. The text draft of the changes wasn't actually available until fairly recently, and from kind of knowledgeable people who have transcribed it into layman's terms, so it's not kind of all legalese and jargon. It has been kind of put down into layman's terms, and when you kind of see it there in English, in real English, it's kind of frightening, because basically, I mean, up to this point in time, the Irish Constitution, it does protect the child, it protects the children, and that's fine. However, with these new changes, what they're proposing is that you will now, once you let's say, for example, like you bring your child to school, or you bring your child to a hospital, or any other kind of any other place. Basically, once your child walks across the threshold of said building, hospital or school, they are now under the control of the state. So mommy and daddy don't really have much of a say, and it basically means that when your child, say, goes to school, and if your child has a fall or anything like that, they can be given medication, they can be seen to without your consent. If they're in hospital and they don't have vaccinations that are up to date, they can be vaccinated against your wishes without your consent.
You're a bad parent if you don't get your child vaccinated, obviously.
In the eyes of the state, yes. So it's kind of I won't kind of spend too much time on it, but it's basically that in a nutshell, that the state want to take control of every child, unborn and born, up to the age of adulthood, i.e. 18 years of age. So the state will be responsible, and it would also mean that at any stage, if the state decided you weren't performing in your duty of care as a parent, that they could come in, remove the child, forcibly if necessary, from the situation, from the family home. The child could be put up for adoption, yes, not even into foster care, but go straight, bypass go, and straight into adoption. And it's frightening, is what it is. I mean, as a parent myself, some of the stuff I read, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm all for children's rights, but I also believe that it's the parent, i.e. the mother or the father, they should have carte blanche as regards to what goes into their child in the form of, say, vaccinations. And if they decide that they don't want to have the child vaccinated, they should be able to say, no, I do not agree with that, here's my reasons why, and the state and everyone else should just accept that. But with these new changes, everything that will basically go out the window, and it'll be the state who will own your child from birth to 18 years of age.
Now, I was listening to a YouTube video, not video, it's audio of an interview with an ex-Irish MEP called Cathy Sinnott, who seems to be very familiar with this. She's 9 children, so she's obviously well aware of what's going on, and obviously concerned about her 9 kids.
She has 9 of her own, I believe. She's looking after. She also has care of, she's looking after, I think it's 7 of her sister's children. I actually heard the same interview. And so she has a hell of a lot on her hands. And yeah, Cathy Sinnott, the interview, I'm not sure if we have it up on the website yet, but I only listened to it today. I'm not sure when Alan listened to it, but I only listened to it this afternoon. And Cathy Sinnott, some people love her, some people hate her, but her finger is firmly on the pulse of what's going on. And she basically, I think the interview is about 60 minutes long, and she kind of talks it, and she's very articulate, and she puts together, she builds a picture, and when she builds that picture, when you finish listening to the interview, it's not a pretty picture, and it's as I said previous, it is kind of frightening, because I mean, both Alan and I are fathers, and we would die for our children, because that's just the kind of people we are, and I know there's a lot of other people out there. And could you just imagine, I mean, a typical scenario, I'm not saying this would happen, but I'm not saying it wouldn't happen either. Alan and I, we're kind of doing what we do here on OYM. We're a little bit controversial. we're kind of going against the grain of society. Well, not society, but the media. We're going against the grain. We're scratching the surface. We want to educate ourselves. We want to know more. We want to expose any untruths that are going on, and we want to let people know about it. So that our outlet is OYM. And could you just imagine if the so-called state, if they decided, well, we don't like what you're doing, so we're going to take your children off you? Could you just, I mean, it could happen.
Well, the whole idea behind it is that if your kids get taken off you, then they could be put into a foster home or something like that. And they're saying that once they get taken off you, you won't get them back. That was one of the things that she was saying and that she was concerned about. And I know we had Brian Garish on the show, and he talked about kids not only being fostered in the same country, but also being shipped abroad to other countries. So it's kind of like child trafficking, really, isn't it?
That's exactly what it's like. A legal form of, and I mean it's basically the state. I mean, as it stands, the original article that's kind of in force at the moment does protect the child, but it also sees that the parents are the primary caregivers, and you know the state cannot supersede unless in very, very exceptional circumstances. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't disagree with that. If there's an exceptional circumstances and they've kind of there's no other alternative, well then maybe, and that's only if there's no other family who could take care of the child until whatever is happening might be sorted out. But just for the state to have carte blanche and go, no, we're taking that child.
Yeah,
I totally disagree with that.
Totally. Okay. Anything else going on during the week for you?
I can't think of that at the moment, but if I think of something maybe further into the show, I'll be sure to mention it. But come here, how was your week? And I know you as you always say, you have a lot more time than me. I hope you use it productively this week. I know we did hook up earlier on, and there are some changes on the way for the studio, because we have had some people saying some of the audio levels were a little bit up and a little bit down. So I know Alan has been doing Trojan work here in the studio this week. So hopefully that will all kind of work out successfully. So how was your week anyway?
Yeah, not too bad. Well, there's not much to report really. Yeah, there's going to be changes during the week regarding the studio, because we want to kind of not downsize a little bit, but more streamline things. So we're going to be doing that during the week, and hopefully by next week we'll have it tested and up and running and working. No problem at all. That's the plan of attack. Now, tomorrow night we're doing a Skype interview with a group up in Donegal, Forum for Change, I believe they're called, up in Donegal, and we're going to be talking about time banking. We're going to be talking about a few things where they want us to go through, and about guests that we've had on the show and stuff like that. So that's going to be quite interesting, doing a Skype interview with a group of people up there in Donegal. And also the other thing, which just something I came across during the week, Aldi, we all know Aldi, the very cheap food and everything else. I was in there the other day doing a bit of shopping, as I do, because I'm a modern man.
Okay.
Right. Okay. And I said, you know what, I'm going to pay with credit card, just for a change, and
oh, very modern.
Yeah, very modern.
You're embracing the cashless society.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, there was another reason to it as well. So I gave
Stony broke, yeah.
Stony broke, yeah. So I gave the guy the credit card, and of course, lo and behold, he gave it back to me. He said, "I'm sorry, we don't take credit cards. We only take cash and laser, because a laser is obviously a debit card.
Yeah.
And they want the money straight away. And of course, a lot of people are using the credit cards now because they don't have the money. And obviously, Aldi are just being cute and saying, "Well, we want the money now. We don't want to wait 3 or 4 or 5 days for it, or have any issues with credit cards." So basically, what they're doing is just taking the debit card. So if you are planning to go to Aldi and you have a credit card, don't use it, because you won't be able to. They won't take it off you.
Can I assume it will be the same, obviously, in the sister store of Aldi, which is a Lidl or Lidl or whatever way it's pronounced?
Well, they're apparently brothers anyway, German brothers.
Allegedly, yeah.
Allegedly, so that's the rumour anyway. But that's really all that we have for you this week. We'll get to, there were a few links came in and stuff like that, but we'll get them out to you during the week. Just remember to register online, very important, because we do get information in and we do send it out. So without further ado, we're going to get our guest in tonight. Good evening, Kevin. How are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you guys doing?
Not too bad, not too bad. Kevin, you've been on the show before. We've had you on before, and we don't want to go over old ground. So do you want to give us a kind of a quick synopsis of your group and what you're doing, and then we'll take it from there.
Well, sure. I'm part of a network in 7 countries now of survivors who have been harmed by the church or government. And it started out, of course, in my work in Canada, working with Native survivors of Catholic and Protestant Indian schools. But it's really blossomed into a much bigger international movement. In Ireland, we're working with groups like John Deegan's group in Dublin that has been holding actual occupations in churches, and groups that are trying to document these crimes and bring charges against those responsible. So it's really taken me all over the world. And just recently I was in Europe. I was in Ireland, the Netherlands, and other places, trying to really bring together and unite these groups, because in many cases they're facing international organizations like the Vatican that have a lot of resources. Survivors of these crimes are really on their own. They're isolated. They need a lot of help. So I've been doing a lot of work trying to unite them and documenting these crimes so that the world can see, what's been going on.
And you said you were recently over in Ireland. What did you get done when you were over here? Was this your first time over here, or have you been over here before?
Oh, no, I've been a number of times. Since about 2008, I've made a number of trips to meet with groups. Back in the spring of 2010, I was over in Dublin. We actually held a number of rallies with groups of survivors of the Magdalene laundries and some of the other, Catholic facilities where they incarcerated children. We held rallies outside the Doyle and met with, we tried to meet actually with the Archbishop at the time. Dermot Martin now in Dublin has said that, they will meet with survivors, but unfortunately whenever they sit down to meet, he avoids the real issues. Like, for example, people are saying, well, when are we going to have these children who died returned for a proper burial? When are the medical bills of people who were harmed as children going to be paid for? And real help given to survivors. The church seems to want to avoid committing itself to doing anything like that, but a lot of the pressure is being maintained through protests and these kinds of things. So I've learned a lot coming over to Ireland, how similar the crimes are. Sitting in Dublin listening to people's stories, it's just like what I heard in Indian healing circles, the harm done to people, how it's passed on generation after generation. Really, it's the same crime all over the world.
Okay, and just from obviously being that we're in Ireland, what have you found out from an Irish point of view? I mean, apart from the likes of the Ryan Tribunal and a few of the things that have been going on, and even, I sent you over a link the other day of one of the cardinals or one of the bishops who said that the priests just got too friendly with the people. That was the comment. That was an excuse. That was the excuse, that you just got too friendly.
Right. It's so, I think that the kind of cover-up and statements like that are as much an abomination as the original crime, frankly. And under the law, when you're trying to conceal a crime, it's just as serious as doing it. What people have to realize by those statements is priests know they can make that and get away with it because there's a law in the church called crimen solicitanus. It goes back to the 1920s, but it's still in effect, and it says when priests harm children or anybody harms a child in a Catholic church, the priests are obligated to cover it up and not tell the police, or they'll be excommunicated. Now, what group in society could tell their employees, cover up child rape, and or you'll lose your job, and get away with it year after year? So that's the problem. It allows an institution that protects itself like that, and which is allowed to protect itself by the law, they're a green light to any child rapist who wants to get ordained. They know they can harm children and be protected by their church. So that has got to change. Those kind of laws have got to be revoked if the church is serious about wanting, to help people.
So basically you're saying is canon law supersedes real law.
That's the way the church looks at it, definitely. The Pope has said that he's above the law. He's not. You see, American lawyers have been trying to sue Joseph Ratzinger for a number of years because he actually signed letters ordering American bishops to cover up this child rape when the lawsuits began in Boston and Los Angeles. Now, American lawyers are charging the Pope with international obstruction of justice, telling citizens of another country to break the laws of their own country. That's a serious doo-doo under international law. But the Pope says, nope, I'm immune from prosecution, and they ignored the summonses sent to them. So as long as you get that going on and the governments allow that to happen, you're going to have these crimes carry on.
I can't, it's very hard to fathom that they have this Pope infallibility through whether it's canon law, but the fact that he's infallible, that he can't make mistakes. I mean, I just find that ridiculous.
Well, that was an idea they brought in the year 1870, and actually when they took the vote on papal infallibility, not even a majority of cardinals voted for it. They kind of rammed it through. So even under their own laws, it's an illegal doctrine. But, Enda Kenny, actually, your TSAC, a couple of years ago made an encouraging statement that he said that law violated the sovereignty of Ireland as a nation, and they would not tolerate Vatican interference. And they were talking about bringing in a law in Ireland which would allow a priest to be prosecuted if he didn't reveal child rape. Now, where that has gone is questionable, because a friend of mine who's a journalist in Europe contacted Enda Kenny's office for an interview, and they were told that TSOC would not agree to any interview on that topic. That was just last month. So I don't know whether that means they've put that on ice or they're kind of avoiding it, or whether it was just for public consumption. But that's the kind of law we need,
Well, you're either for it or against it. At the end of the day, it has to be. I know that's very black and white, but you're either, for child abuse or against child abuse. And if you're against child abuse, then you do something about it. And if you're for child abuse, then you obviously need to be questioned.
Yeah, but I mean, I think we can all agree that with everything that's going on in the country at the moment, I mean, I'd actually remember Enda Kenny. I do remember that, Kevin, where he was making that statement, and we're kind of really in the austerity. We're getting stuck into the whole austerity thing here, and the country was kind of starting to suffer. So I think that statement by Enda Kenny, probably like most politicians, and I'm not tarring everybody with the same brush, but we've all heard their pre-election promises. But I say there was a lot of angry people in the country, especially about the Catholic Church and the abuse that went on. And it's my own personal feeling that when Enda Kenny said what he said, it was just kind of he maybe it was equivalent to throwing a bucket of water on a fire. It was just kind of to quell the flames, but there was nothing else behind it as far as I'm concerned.
Well, that's probably true. He did what a lot of politicians do. It was interesting. Soon after that, John Deegan mentioned that he saw in the newspaper a picture of the President of Ireland sitting right next to Cardinal Sean Brady, being all buddies and friends, when Sean Brady actually told people they would go to hell if they reported a priest who had raped a child, as if God wants people to cover up child rape or something. I mean, these guys were... Cardinal Sean Brady now, I think, is looking to resign. That was the scuttlebutt I heard in Dublin, but small wonder when he makes a comment like that,
So if he does resign, for argument's sake, could charges be brought against him after he steps down from his position? No, I'm guessing even if he does resign, he's still going to be protected under the whole Cardinal law thing, isn't he?
No, actually, that doesn't prevent you from being prosecuted as a citizen of your country. As a matter of fact, there's 2 German lawyers that are trying to sue Joseph Ratzinger as a German citizen, because regardless of his position in under canon law, he's still liable under the laws of his own country. He's a German national. Just like Sean Brady's an Irish national, he can be prosecuted like anybody else. The point is, do people have the political will to do it? And that's really, I think, the issue.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, even Joseph Ratzinger or any priest or politician, I mean, at the end of the day, they're first and foremost, they're a man. They're flesh and blood, and that's it. I mean, what sickens me is when you hear the likes of this, the Pope, he can't be touched, he's infallible. At what point? I mean, let's say, for argument's sake, that there was a man called Jesus Christ, for argument's sake, and Jesus Christ came down and he done what he did. Did Jesus Christ, this man, did he ever, say, listen lads, set up an old church there and do what you want and do it in my name, I'm cool with that? I don't think
no.
he would.
No, he never did. I mean, even in the Bible, there's no reference to the Trinity at all. A lot of these things are just made up by the church to solidify their own power, and that's the thing to realize. I mean, it's kind of like when I was in Italy, I was meeting in Rome with a number of politicians, and one of these guys said, the thing you have to understand is the church and the mafia and the Italian government, they're all the same people, and the church is really the mafia. It has its law of silence. It's a sin to rape a child, but it's not a crime. what the crime is under canon law is to talk about what's gone on. If you talk, you're dead. And, there's the Pope's butler is now on trial in a secret Vatican prison. He's being tried for revealing secrets from the Pope's diary. It shows you that the Italian government is allowing one of its own citizens to be hijacked and tried in a secret court. This is right out of the Middle Ages,
That's, well, there you go. See, I don't know, if you take away the church, because years ago, the priest was the middleman to God, and you went to your confessional and you did your confessions and stuff like that. But now people are kind of walking away from the church and religion and seeing it for what it is, which takes the power away from the church. Now the funny thing is, and I've said this before on the show, and we're not going to get all religious, but basically, a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, she goes to church every week, and she's an intelligent woman. And I said to her, what is God? Who is God? First of all, I said, do you believe in God? Obviously she does. She goes to Mass, apparently. So that's where you see God in church. But, and then I said, well, who is God? What is God to you? Oh, well, you have to have faith. And I said, well, I have faith, but, I've gone to the bother to work out what God is to me. Because if I'm going to believe in something, I really want to know what I'm believing in. But there's too many people out there will say, oh, I believe in God. And when you ask them what is God or who is God, they'll say, oh, well, you have to have faith. They don't know. It's just blind, the blind leading the blind to a certain extent.
People can believe whatever they like. The question is, does your belief in God give you the right to rape children, kill other people, conquer their country, or protect those who do? And if you think your religion gives you the right to do that, it's not really a religion. It's not about faith. It's a power over people, and it's a dangerous criminal power. It's been proven that, right?
Definitely, and that guy that was on the program, it was actually on TV3. For people who want to actually see the repeat of the program, if you go to TV3, go to the TV3 player on their website, and there's a chap interviewed, and he was saying that he was abused. And it is amazing. Now, the movie that I'd recommend, if people haven't seen this, and it's based on a true story called Sleepers. And it was a very good, now it's nothing got to do with the church, but it's got to do with abuse. About these boys when they were young, they went to like a borstal for, behaving badly. And they were abused by the prison guards, and 10 years later, or 20 years later, they get their own back on the guards who abused them. And it's based on a true story, and one of the guys actually lives in the UK now, according to the story. But it's just phenomenal how systemic the abuse was in the actual church. Literally, the amount of numbers they came out with, as in the abuse. And, and I'm sure internally as well, I'm pretty sure it's not just abuse of children, but I'm sure young guys going into the priesthood were probably abused by older priests there.
That was common, yeah. That's the reality, that when you're harmed like that, you tend to pass it on. The rate of child abuse in churches is higher than almost any organization in society, and I don't think it's accidental. It's not just that it's a haven for child rapists, which it is legally, but it's right in the whole mindset. If you believe in original sin, if you believe children are born fallen, then they have less humanity than you do, and you therefore have a right to harm them in any way you see fit. That goes along with the belief. So I think it isn't an accident, right?
And so do you think that people are actually joining, or people have joined the priesthood because they know that they can do this and get away with it because of the canon law, and and that's why they become priests? Yeah?
Absolutely they do. As a matter of fact, having been a Protestant clergyman, I often met Catholic priests and other Protestant ministers, and I'm telling you, the extent to which people are aware of this in the ministry is phenomenal, and yet it's the code of silence. They won't talk on each other. They know they'll lose their job and their pension if they do.
That's incredible. And the story with the Magdalene sisters, I remember reading an article about it where an actual group of them have got together and start campaigning. Yeah. Is that something that you were involved in?
Well, I'm involved with a number of the people involved with that, yeah. And the difficulty with the Magdalene group is that the government ruled that they weren't eligible for any kind of compensation. because they were under church control. Now, in other words, the government of Ireland is saying, we get to designate who's a legitimate survivor and who isn't, and if you were under church control, sorry, we're not going to touch it. I mean, that's like saying the church had carte blanche to do whatever it wants, and this is what I'm talking about, the way governments and courts collude with the churches, and as long as that goes on, we're not going to get justice.
Yeah, no, and it's something that we need to look into, and it needs to be looked into big time with the politicians as well. I mean, I don't know why the politicians are kind of sitting on the fence in some cases with this, when it's so obvious that it's happening, and it's been happening for a very long time. I mean, not even down to, sexual abuse, but down to physical abuse. I mean, my own father, I remember, he has a scar on his leg from the Christian Brothers. He's a 2-inch scar where he got beaten by them. And that was common practice. Years ago, it was common practice.
I can tell you in one word why the politicians go along: money. The Vatican, in Italy alone, the Vatican financially subsidizes every political party, including left-wing parties. In Ireland, I'm sure it's the same. They get endowments. The Vatican Bank brings in $50 to $100 billion a year just out of the collection plate. It's got special laws they're called financial concordats, where 173 nations in the world channel taxpayers' money right into the Vatican Bank. I mean, this is an enormous corporation with the means to buy anybody they like. And, government, or politicians, how far their ethics extend often when it comes to bribes, that's part of a big reason why you don't get a lot of movement on this stuff right now.
Okay, did you say 150 billion or million?
Billion.
Billion? That's incredible.
50 billion alone, they figured, just from the collection plate. There's a thing called Peter's Pence, which is every Catholic is expected to give a certain amount every year that goes directly to the Pope's personal use. It's called Peter's Pence. But that doesn't include any of the corporate investments. The Vatican invests heavily in the arms industry, in the drug industry, big pharma. That's why they test out drugs on children so often in their orphanages and hospitals in agreement with these big pharma companies. I mean, it goes on, but they've got a lot of means to circumvent any kind of justice, and this is the difficulty we've been facing.
That's incredible.
That is something we've heard. I think we only heard that within the past couple of months, Kevin, that there was kind of collusion between the pharmaceutical companies and the church in relation to kids that were placed in these orphanages. I mean, I wouldn't have believed it. I mean, I'm open-minded, so I would have believed it, but it would be hard to believe that there would have been collusion, say, between the church and the state, basically the state, to try out all these new pharmaceutical new products on these kids. But say
I'm telling you, in Ireland, I met 3 women in Dublin when I was there just a few weeks ago. They were all part of these drug testing experiments. A lot of most of them haven't come forward, but those who have, they're working with John Deegan and others in Dublin. And let me say now, if people want to look at some of this evidence, there's 2 websites. We have hiddennolonger.com is a general website we have with a lot of this evidence posted online, hiddennolonger.com. And then our tribunal website, the International Tribunal into Crimes of Church and States, it's itccs.org. And you can see a lot of the stuff up there.
I'm just typing those into the chat facility now at the moment for the listener. So it's hiddennolonger.com and itccs.org. So I'm just gonna press go basically and get those live.
Type them in. And how is the organisation that the organisation that you're putting together and putting the groups together? How is that going at the moment?
Well, we've had forward motion. We've had groups in, like I say, 7 countries. We're talking Canada, the United States, Ireland, England, the Netherlands, Germany, and Australia. They've all come together to do these kinds of actions, hold local tribunals and protests, bring out the evidence. And one of the things we just started on September 15th, we've started a common law court where we are taking this evidence, putting it up online, and there's 58 citizen jurors who are going to be looking at the evidence and rendering a verdict. After that, what we're going to say is, look, we have a verdict on whether these churches and governments are guilty. Now we're putting it to the community. What kind of sentence do you think should be brought in? against the churches and governments to make sure these things don't happen again. And that's the kind of common law direction we feel we have to go, because the courts up to now, like I say, have just been in bed completely with these criminals. And in Canada alone, they've ruled time and again that you can't even charge these churches and government with genocide, that it's outside their jurisdiction to do that. Well, we need another way to do that, and this is what we're trying to establish kind of from the grassroots.
I think it's very important, Kevin, that when people start to realise, when they do start to wake up, and I'm not talking about like people who've been abused, because obviously they've seen it from the inside, but people on the outside who all they ever see, their perception of church is just, the friendly priest who's very friendly, and he says the mass, and if you're sick he comes around to the house and he gives you some words of wisdom. I think it's about time that people realise that it's okay to see what goes on. It's okay to look at the other side, and it's okay to get angry. But you know as well as I do. Even me, as an example, when as far back as I can remember, we were all brought to mass on a Sunday, and it was just the done thing. And I suppose after so many years of just kind of doing the done thing, even when I was 17 years of age, I moved out of family home. I started living away from the family home, but still, because it had been drummed into me, even when I was living, say, in a flat, I would still go to mass on a Sunday. And after, I say, it must have been about maybe 5 or 6 months of this, I started to question, why am I doing this? Am I doing this because it's something that I want, or am I doing it because it's something that was kind of, I was told that I had to do? And when I realised that it was something that I had control over, I didn't have to do it, I stopped doing it. And then I realised then that, when you're kind of not afraid of the church, it's a whole different ballgame, because I think people they fear the church, they fear the priests, they fear the whole, everything under the kind of the Catholic umbrella. They kind of fear it, because it's been, especially in Ireland, it's been controlling us for years.
Well, it's a fear-based religion, so yeah, it relies on that completely. And I remember when I was 8 years old, I was sitting in Sunday school, and I was thinking, if God is the way they say, then why does he need this church building? Why does he need money in the collection plate? Why does he need all this power in the world? I knew it was phony. I mean, any kid can realize that, and yet you get beaten out of you that natural wisdom, and you say, no, you're wrong. That's the whole theme of religion. You're always wrong. The church is always right. Well, that notion of infallibility, I've never thought that God is always right. Why would the church always be right? It doesn't make any logical sense, or when you look into it.
The other thing that I always kind of say about the school system as well, because the school system is a little bit to blame as well, and I was talking to Steve about it the other day, and I said, it's a pity the school system doesn't teach our children to think. What they do is tell our kids what to think. They don't teach them how to think, they teach them what to think. And it's like garbage in, garbage out, when we've talked about this before. And even to the stage, even the religious side in church, or in school, teaching about the religion side. And I'm going to be kind of watching what the church, or I say the church at school, say about, say to my son. And I'll be keeping his mind open, but obviously he is afraid to say something to the teacher, because, school is supposed to be for learning. And it just seems that he's afraid to say something to the teacher because he's afraid that she'll give out to him. And even this day and age, I still think, that's wrong. That's going back to years ago where you kept your mouth shut or you got slapped. But you'd think this day and age that would all change, especially with everything going on. But that's still the same at the moment. And I just hope that's going to change. Is there anything else that's on the agenda for you? Is there any other travelling that you're going to be doing, or any other groups that you're going to be meeting up with?
Well, over the next month or so, I'm going to be spending a lot of my time posting evidence up online. And like I say, if people go to itccs.org, they can follow the progress of this. I want to say we've got 5 cases we're posting, first of all. Most of them have to do with Canada and the genocide, but one of the cases in our docket is involving this document, Crimen Solicitanis. It's basically charging the Catholic Church with being part of an international criminal conspiracy where priests are ordered to cover up child abuse. They've issued subpoenas, summonses to 32 officials of the church and government, including the Pope and 4 cardinals in Rome and the head of the Jesuits, Now, whether or not they respond, the point is the evidence against them is going to be put up online for people to come to a judgment about. In the spring, I'll be coming back to Europe, and we're going to do a second round of cases involving the ties between Big Pharma and the churches and the evidence of people. This is going to be videotaped evidence, people giving their testimonies about how they were used in drug testing. So that's something that I think people in Ireland would have particular interest about because it was very common there. And so I definitely in the new year I'll be coming back to Ireland and meeting with people more. And if people listening want to be part of that, they can reach me. My email is hiddenfromhistory1, like the number 1, hiddenfromhistory1@gmail.com.
Okay, and outside of the actual church, what other things have you come across regarding abuse with children and people?
Well, one of the most disturbing things is the fact that these crimes continue to today. So more and more I've been documenting, with the help of a number of different people, the child trafficking networks that exist today. What you find in many countries, and I know this is true about Ireland too, is child trafficking goes on right within the government system of child protection. So in fact there's rings of social workers, police, lawyers who are involved in trafficking and abusing children right in the government system itself. We know this happens in Canada, the U.S. We've documented cases of this, definitely in Europe as well. There was a big child trafficking ring broken in Belgium just a few years ago. It were involving judges. This is fairly common, so this is one of the areas we're moving into as well. Another area has to do with environmental genocide. We're showing uranium poisoning all over Canada on native land because of the mining and that. These are some of the areas that we're going into as well.
Okay, and the judges and stuff like we've actually heard from Brian Garish regarding that, and actually one judge in Wales, Brian was telling us about, actually had his boyfriend sitting beside him in court while he was working. I mean, how in the face is that? But yeah, we got a question there, Steve. You want to talk to Kevin about that?
Yeah, Kevin, a question just came in on the chat here from Lord Vapor. He's one of our regular listeners to the show, and he just said, "Can you ask Kevin about SRA and the church's involvement?" I didn't know what SRA was, so he just clarified satanic ritual abuse.
Oh yeah. Well, unfortunately, we do have fairly solid evidence of that going on. I first had evidence of that when I was working as a minister, and Native people came to me. They showed me scars on their bodies. They told me things that had happened, actual rituals, when they were in the Indian residential schools. And they're having a number of books written actually showing how these networks operate right within churches. But also, within Europe, whenever I hold meetings, people come forward, at least one or two people will describe this, evidence of ritual abuse. There's a whole movement to document this, and it really needs a whole show to go into the details of that. But I would just say to the caller, we're looking into that, and anything that they have that might be of use to us, or resources, or people who are working on that, I'm kind of like a traffic cop connecting people to other people, and so we can, work with them if they would like to bring that. What we need is some kind of solid evidence with testimonies, people willing to come forward in that, and that's often the difficult thing to get.
I have just a message to pass over to Kevin here from a person on the other chat facility, TRP, and says that say hi to Kevin for me. Still hoping to meet him here in Vancouver someday soon. So just a message from somebody there.
Oh, well, that's great. And if they want to write to me, I live near Vancouver, so I can meet them anytime. Please have them just write me the email, and I'll meet up with them.
Okay, well, they would have heard that broadcast. So if you want to send Kevin an email, and he'll hook up with you there. Steve?
Just kind of as a sideline to what we're what we're speaking about satanic ritual abuse. I'm just going to focus on the word satanic for a moment. This is some information, Kevin, that we've learned over the past couple of months, maybe the past couple of years will be kind of truer thing to say. But that if you ever kind of watch the videos on, say, the likes of MTV, that a lot of the videos whereby, say, 20 years ago, like I'm kind of an 80s music lover, and the videos back then were fun, but the videos now that I'm seeing, there's a lot of well, maybe it's because I'm more open, but there's kind of it seems to be a lot more kind of satanic stuff in it, like there's little rituals that seem to be going on in music videos, and it's all about kind of worship and degrading and showing of the flesh. Is that something that you reckon is kind of connected to all this?
Very much, and people, it goes by different names. In a way, satanic ritual abuse is a misnomer because it makes it seem like it's only involving people who worship Satan, and that's not in fact true. A lot of this ritual abuse goes on by active practicing Christians. This is one of the disturbing things when we've discovered rings of clergy involved in passing children around and using very degrading methods in that. It can be any religion. It isn't just Satanism per se. It's a whole attitude that children are usable and expendable, and that's what we're fighting.
That's exactly. It's the whole thing, and it's not just the church. Obviously, there's outside. We know about the Holy Grail craze. Have you heard about that, Kevin?
Yes, I have. Yeah, I've actually met Holly and some of the groups in England who work in support of her.
Okay, because that's a typical example where it was a paedophile ring, and there was a mixture of people. It wasn't just I don't know about any religious people in the ring, but there was definitely senior people in there, maybe counsellors or somebody in the.
A lot of people seem to be involved. High up people who you would expect that you could put your trust in.
Oh, definitely, but that's the way it always is, isn't it? That's the way it always is. And with this Child Act that's coming in now over here in Ireland, which they want to bring in, which obviously we want people to vote no for, because they'll just get complete control over your child, and then they'll dictate. There was one politician who did turn around and say that all children over here should be vaccinated. And Miriam, I think it was Miriam Stoppard as well, allegedly also the English doctor, she said, I believe I've seen an article with her in it saying all children should be vaccinated. Not having a clue. Again, there's a level of arrogance there. I'm a doctor, I know what I'm talking about.
They think they have. They think they know anyway. Another question for you, Kevin. Can you ask Kevin if he is? Can you ask Kevin if he has? Okay.
No, take out the is.
I'll take out the is. Can you ask Kevin if he has corresponded with Michael Shrimpton, or does he know of him?
The name doesn't ring a bell, no.
Okay, there you go. That answers that. Now, Kevin, there is a couple of topics that we need to talk to you about. Obviously, people have sent in questions. They knew you were going to be on, so they sent in questions to ask you to talk to you about it. And obviously, I'm sure you've come across these before, so it's not going to be anything new, but we're just kind of passing on the message. And we just are going to ask these questions. Apparently, now, obviously, sometimes what I do is when we have a guest on, I surf the internet as well, and I just check up, try and get an up-to-date on what's going on, and there's any news, and get alternative views, and talk to a guest about it. The couple of questions that have come in here, they were highlighting a couple of things, and they said that they were talking about that you were disowned by the Mohawk tribe. They took back your name, Strong Eagle Voice, and the Six Nations have thrown you out. Ken Bear Chief provided several examples of your fraudulence. They're saying that you were fraudulent in some way, and made several defamatory comments against the Northern Cree, either Gerald White horse standing. The other thing is that Italy has thrown you out permanently because of lies and cons. Now, I don't know much about this, but I'm
sorry. I didn't hear the last part.
Yeah, Italy has thrown you out. The country has thrown you out permanently
Italy, that's new.
Because
that's a new one.
of lies and cons. But
no, they're talking about England, I think.
Oh, England, okay.
England.
No, but we did say
I think
this.
They should try to get their facts straight.
Yeah, we did say this on the last show, where we heard about you being ejected from a country, okay. But what about the Native American people, what they're saying? Because that seems to agree.
The only thing I can think they're referring to is there's a thing put up on YouTube this year by a guy called Frank Miller, who claimed to represent all the Mohawk elders. And you see, there isn't any one group that represents all the elders in these nations. There's all sorts of different factions. One of the factions at Six Nations, where I went to work last year after being invited there, by a whole group of elders. One of the factions didn't like what I was doing, set themselves up as spokesmen for the whole nation and said, we don't want Kevin here anymore. I would never have my name removed. There was never any ceremony where they took back that name they gave to me. And so a lot of that is just made up, and it's people with an axe to grind. Now, the thing to understand about the Native world, they're not all in agreement over this. Those who are funded by the government have been told they're not to be involved in these, the investigations I'm doing, including at the
Hello. Just lost
somebody
you there,
just
Kevin.
said I had on the phone 60 seconds left on the phone for some reason. I don't know. I hope I'm not cut off. But anyway, in a nutshell, what I'm saying is that these are smears put out there without not much foundation in fact. But it's coming now because we're getting close to something, and the government is paying a lot of Indians to say this stuff, and it's not really that simple.
Okay.
But I would just say if there's evidence, if people have evidence rather than just hearsay, I'd be glad to address it. But, not everybody's going to be in agreement, and I've made mistakes. I'm not claiming to be a saint or a devil. I'm just somebody trying to work on this. And if they can do a better job, let them do it. But I think all this carping from the sidelines is really quite pointless.
Okay, well listen, there's a couple of other things. I'm just concerned about these 60 seconds on the phone. I don't know whether it's your end or my end, but if we line up a bit of music anyway, Steve, just in case, and if we do get cut off, if you want to call back in, it's probably one of these systems where, there you go.
Okay.
That kind of answers that. We'll go to a bit of music, and then we'll be back after this.
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMIreland.com, CNSradio.me.com, and ICRadioNetwork.com.
And we're back. Apologies for that little faux pas. We're still kind of scratching heads at this end, so we're kind of not exactly sure what happened. But we're back, and we have Kevin Annett back on the line. Kevin.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, Kevin, we'll take up where we left off there. Okay, so what you're saying is you want to see the evidence that what they're saying. You want to see the evidence from them.
Well, yeah, and it's like anything. People are free to criticize anything that I do or anybody does. But at the end of the day, the question is, where is this all leading? Are these people criticizing me, making this equal criticism towards the government and churches responsible for these crimes? None of these people who have been going after me have been out there on the front line working with us. They were not at the gravesite when we began to unearth the remains of these kids. They had not been on protest. They're just kind of attacking and criticizing from the sidelines. So it's a safe thing to do, to criticize somebody else. It's harder to get out there and actually do this work. So I just say to people, look, we can disagree all we like. At the end of the day, what are you doing? That's the real measure of things.
Okay. Now, I did listen to a radio interview I came across on the Internet, and there was probably about 6 or 7 Native American people on this interview talking, saying that they are concerned about what you're saying and that you are misrepresenting them and stuff like that. And from an emotional point of view, I could tell from their voice that they were being sincere in what they're saying, and I was just listening to this, and I thought, well, what is it that Kevin is doing that they're not happy about? And they were talking about the remains actually turned out to be dog bones rather than actual people, and there's a few other things said. Now, as you say, you're saying there's a group of people that are obviously going against you and they're on the sidelines and they're having to go with you. And this information hasn't been, like your name hasn't been taken away because does present the proof and show the proof. I don't know the full story to this, but I do know one thing, and I do know that the Native American people are probably very similar to the history of the Irish people, because we were repressed for 800 years by the English, and we were controlled, and we had to fight for our land, and unfortunately it's taken less than 100 years, and we've given it back now to Europe. So we can.
Well, right, and with the example of Ireland too, often our people, and my great-grandfather came from County Tyrone on a coffin ship back in 1880. His whole family died on the way over to Canada. But let me say that our people often were our own worst enemies because we were fighting each other so much. The English were able to divide and conquer. And the same thing happens among Indians. There's massive divide and conquer. The example you gave of people saying I misrepresented them, I've never tried to represent Indians. I've just tried to say, look, the issue of what happened to the children has got to be brought out. No Native people were bringing it out until I started asking these questions. I'm addressing my culture, saying, how is it that we killed these children? We've got to be held accountable. it's time for them to say, okay, if they can do a better job, let them do it. But the bones we found turned out mostly to be human, but animal rather. But there were human bones in there. That was confirmed by 2 archaeologists. They're not mentioning that fact because in the Indian world, it's very easy and commendable almost to attack a white guy. It's a lot harder to take on the government and churches that tried to wipe you out, and it's a scary thing to do as a Native person. You know you're on the line. You can be killed at any time. So it's a lot easier to turn on each other or turn on the lone white guy trying to do this. But it doesn't solve the problem. And I think this is what you learn from Irish history or Canadian history. It's a lot harder to unite and say what you're interested in achieving. It's a lot easier to attack each other and criticize and tear each other down. That's what we see happening.
Okay, well, obviously we don't know enough about it to comment on and we don't have somebody else from the Native American people, Native Indian people to come on and actually talk about it and put their side across. I think at the end of the day, for me, if anybody, no matter what's being done, if people are getting hurt, either physically or emotionally, then maybe you have to find another way to do it. Whether that's you or whether that's them, I don't know. But if there are Native American people who have been abused in a system, then they should obviously come forward and try and get some recompense for what happened. And if you can help them to do that or shine a light on it, well then that's fine. They obviously have a good reason in their eyes, from what I've heard with the interview that I heard, that they feel that what you're doing they're not happy about. And maybe what you have to do is respect their wishes, even though you might not agree with what they are doing.
Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I've respected their wishes time and again. I was invited there. What they're leaving out is the fact that there are elders that you're not hearing about who continue to support me. And those are the ones who continue to want me to come and work with them. So in a situation like that where some want me and some don't, I'm not going to force my way in. I'm just going where I'm invited. And I've said that to them from the very beginning. Okay, and do you have,
maybe it might be a good idea for you, Kevin, to get some documented evidence of video that when you go to these Native people, that you get it on video, that they're actually behind you and backing you, and you put that video on your website. So if anybody does question...
Yeah. Well, here's the problem. We've done that, and the people who come out and support me are targeted. We've had 4 people on my network killed, Native people, either by the police or suddenly in hospital when they've come out as elders supporting our campaign. So it's not healthy for Natives to support this work we're doing. They're knocked off. It's that simple. And people know that, and they hide. Whereas those who are funded by the government are safe and have all the TV coverage in the world to get on to denounce what I'm doing. So that's why you're never going to get a balanced coverage on this.
I think we can agree with that.
People who come forward are in danger.
Yeah, no, I think we can agree with that. People who tend to who come out in the open and talk about it, then they obviously become a target. Now, who is doing the? I mean, do you know who's doing the targeting? Who's doing this? Who's?
Yeah, absolutely, I do know, because they've come out and admitted. It's the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, E Division in Vancouver. And the Vancouver Police. I was there when the police sergeant threatened Bingo Dawson, saying, "Troublemakers like you go missing." The next month he was dead, beaten in an alley by 3 cops. The cause of death was alcohol withdrawal, but there was no alcohol in the system, according to the toxicology report. Indians are killed all the time in Canada this way, and elders who come forward and support what we're doing are threatened all the time. And that's why it's easy for these other voices to be heard and not the ones who are saying, yeah, we support this investigation. So, we also know that there's Native chiefs who have been doing this to their own people. We've named some of them in our work. The drug trafficking and child trafficking, it operates right in the Native world. Many of the Native chiefs in Canada are the biggest drug dealers on their own reservation. This is some of the stuff we're documenting, and this is why we're not popular among their friends and neighbors, because we're pointing about their crimes as well, not just the white society.
Obviously,
so, it's a very complicated situation.
Of course, and if you're exposing something like that, then they want people to hear about it. There's a couple of questions come in there, Kevin, Steve, if you want to go from Lord Vapor, I think.
Yeah, Kevin, I've got 2 here for you. Question 1, can you ask what happened with the Queen and the picnic where the children disappeared? Is this true?
Well, this is a story from one of the men who then died in hospital after going public with that story. His name was William Coombs, and he was a regular on my radio show in Vancouver. He had been held in the Catholic residential school in Kamloops, British Columbia. In October 1964, he claimed that he saw Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip come to the school for a visit. And I checked in the records, and there was, in fact, a royal visit to Canada in that month, so they were in the country. William says that they were taken on a picnic down to the local river, and that after the picnic, the Queen and Prince Philip left with 7 boys and 3 girls, and they were never seen again. That's William and a friend of his who had died since then told that story. William went on very public about this. He was going to come over to England and tell that story, and he was taken into St. Paul's Hospital, a Catholic hospital in Vancouver, that same month. Basically, they induced a coma in him and then pulled him off life support after less than 2 days. So I believe he was killed because of that. I mean, that certainly indicates, I think, something foul play.
Absolutely. I mean, Jesus Christ, that's kind of an MO that we've heard time and time again when people are going to go public with various different stories that would kind of open a can, as they say, and we have heard of people who mysteriously either have a crash or they lose control of their vehicle, or the whole alcohol thing, and as someone says here, alcohol is too easy an excuse to. But I mean, wow.
And Brian said that the one thing, like everything else, is now open. I mean, the likes of in the 60s, homosexuality was illegal and you couldn't be open about it, and now that's all sorted out. The one thing that's left now that's still not acceptable is paedophilia and child abuse. But obviously, with everything what they're trying to do, and all the things we've heard through the German website saying it's good to touch up your children, and various things that Brian told us about on the show, and what he's come across, they're now trying to get us adjusted to having paedophilia as, as accepted in society. Even the Vatican, even where the Vatican is, they brought down the age limit, I think, for consensual sex to 14. And if that's full of priests, then why do they need consensual sex down to 14?
Yeah, well, I think we may have touched on this before, but I'm not sure, Kevin, if you can enlighten us. But we did hear before, about a year ago, that the whole ritual of confirmation, that ritual is basically when you confirm, the child confirms that he or she has now reached manhood or womanhood, and because they've reached kind of manhood or womanhood, they get to pick another name. So therefore, because they didn't get to pick their name at birth, they now get to pick the name that they want for the confirmation, because they're kind of, they're saying, I am a man now, I get to pick my own name. And we also heard that in the Vatican, that once you reach that age of confirmation, and you confirm you're a man, you then become of legal age to marry and also to have sex.
Yeah,
right.
That's incredible. One of the questions here, and I'd like to answer it, if you don't mind, Kevin, is from Mike the Fish. And he said, can you ask the guest, but you can talk about this as well, Kevin. Can you ask your guest, does he think the Crown tried to wipe out native Indians because they knew what it was like to be in tune with Mother Earth and didn't want the knowledge spreading to Europe? Same way they tried to suppress and wipe out the Irish. Well, the 4 races that they're trying to wipe out, and they tried to wipe out, are the Native American Indians, the Irish, the Scots, and the Africans. Because all them 4 cultures were all rebellious. Throughout history, we have been rebellious, fighting the system. So they do want to affect us. And that's probably why in Ireland we're being fluoridated to the hilt with the water to pacify us. Because if we don't have fluoride in the water, there'll probably be war on the streets with the politicians. Yeah, and it's working well.
Yeah, well, to answer that question, I think very much indigenous knowledge stood in the way of the whole kind of industrial machinery that was coming out of Europe. It also stood in the way of the whole mentality in the Christian church, which is there can be no other faith but ours. And the same culture that wiped out millions of people in Europe, our ancestors in the witch hunt craze and all that, that was aimed at our indigenous European culture, people who were on the land, who had traditional healing. all of that was a threat to so-called Christian civilization and then, later capitalism, I think. And so, yeah, they definitely used the same method, whether it was in Ireland or in Canada against the native population. The thing to realize about why native people are in the state they are now is because they're all a traumatized population. Most of the native people I work with, including the chiefs, they have never dealt with their own recovery and healing. And there was a native woman, Carol Martin, who worked with me in Vancouver until she was threatened, and her kids were being threatened to have taken away from her, so she had to drop off. But one of the things Carol Martin said, she's a Nisga'a native woman, she said the reason she supported what I'm doing is because her own people don't have it together enough to speak out for themselves. They are so traumatized that they can be used, and their fear is used to control them. Until people get to a certain level of recovery, they can't take this stuff on, and they have this kind of blind loyalty to the very system that destroyed them. And, I find that, I think they call it the Stockholm Syndrome, where somebody identifies with their oppressor. This is really common in the native world. So, it shows you that genocide really worked, and it takes a long time to get over it if people ever do,
Well, I was watching the movie, The Magdalene Sisters, and funny enough you should say that about Stockholm Syndrome. There was actually, there was a lady who, even though she was there for years, I don't know if you remember the movie, but she was obviously there for years and years, and she was so acclimatized to that system that, she had to do everything, and she felt sorry for the nuns. Instead of being angry at what was going on, she had some sympathy for them. So if you want to class that as kind of a level of Stockholm Syndrome, then obviously, we can understand that.
Oh, I see it all the time. And the older native people, they're loyal Christians. They get really upset when you criticize the church. And I'll say to these people, yeah, but they murdered your brothers and sisters, literally. Why do you have loyalty to them? And it's this irrational kind of fear-based loyalty, and you see it all over. Yeah,
well, especially when they're in something where they're institutionalized, like in a boarding school or in the priesthood, where, and even the politicians to a certain extent. I mean, they are institutionalized, and we had that with George. Give me his last name.
George.
The politician that only stayed in for 9 months and then left. From RTE.
George Lee.
George Lee, yeah. George Lee. I mean, we had a politician over here who joined the political party, and he was only in there for 9 months. And he left the political party because all the lobbying he was doing and the bills he was putting in were getting nowhere. He realised that the parties were institutionalised, and if he didn't toe the rope, then obviously there's going to be a scandal or you get kicked out. And that doesn't surprise me that you'd get that. Okay, Kevin, we have about 20 minutes left. So what we'd like to do is, on that 20 minutes, we'd like to focus on the solutions or the positives and where you see things going now within the next. Obviously, we have a lot of talk about what's going to happen around 2012 and, global issues that are going on. But what we'd like to do is find out where you want to bring this and what the support that you need, and obviously if there are people having to go at you, what they need to do to, if they are going to give out to you, then what you're saying is show me the proof.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's two aspects to this. There's the stuff we're against, and then the stuff we're trying to create. And more I'm trying to focus on the latter. We know what the crimes are. As early as 1996, I was publishing that online, a lot of this evidence that the government now is acknowledging. We know what the crimes are. We know that through some kind of court process, the guilty are being named. There's going to be sentences brought in. But it's not so much as punishing individuals as making sure these things don't happen again. And so, for example, we need to look at long-term changes like making priests everywhere public servants so that they're licensed by the public. If they harm a child, their license can be taken away. The wealth of these churches has got to start being used to help people and not, being used the way it is now as basically a big corporate institution. Over the long run, we've got to find a way to look at ourselves and saying, what causes genocide in the first place? How can we undo it so that we can get back into a right relationship with each other and with the earth? I think this is what we're all aiming towards, consciously or unconsciously. So we need to find some new common ground of unity where we stand to protect our children, the earth, and our liberties. And if we can unite on those three things, I don't care what people's politics are. I don't care what they think of their other issues. We've got to be united on that, or we don't have a future. So, this is why we're focusing more and more internationally on uniting people, not just about the problems, but say, what are we going to do long term to bring about these changes that are going to create a new kind of society? So I think that's more and more what we have to do. That's why I spend most of my time now speaking to people in my own culture, Europeans, white Canadians, to say, we're 98% of the population in Canada. The Indians are 2%. We need to take responsibility for what happened because we're the ones that are going to make the changes. So this is more and more, I think, the direction people have got to start moving in.
Definitely. Now, we have a message there from one of our guests, or one of our listeners there. Steve, you want to just pass that on to Kevin?
Yeah, Kevin, one of our listeners here, it's Lord Vapor again. He says, can you urge your guest to check out Michael Shrimpton and his intel on these crimes to see if there is any corroborating evidence to what he is saying, obviously to what you're saying. I'm guessing then Michael Shrimpton is obviously involved in the same kind of exposing the same crimes that you were.
I sure will. Thank you for that. And could you spell the last name?
Yeah, Shrimpton.
Michael.
Shrimpton.
Thank you, I will do.
So like Shrimpton. Shrimp, like a shrimp. Okay, so obviously, a lot needs to be done, a lot needs to be exposed, and we can understand where you're coming from. Obviously, if you're exposing people that obviously don't want to be exposed. One of the things that we've mentioned before, and I don't know whether you've actually seen this movie, it's a movie called Personal Services with... Now, the lady who was the star in the movie was representing a madam in the 70s and 60s and 70s called Cynthia Payne. Have you heard of her?
No, I haven't, no.
Okay, well, Cynthia Payne was a madam. She ran a brothel in the 60s and 70s. And basically, they made a movie about her life because when she was actually caught and brought to court, she always got off in front of the judge because it turned out all the judges that she went in front of were part of her little clique. And they're the judges who used to turn up at her brothel to have personal services. So, and it's not until you actually watch a movie like that and similar movies that you realise how corrupt and how seedy the whole system is. And it's not just men in Max. There are people involved at the top echelons of society. In the law, politicians, and people probably in childcare as well, because a few people have been caught in childcare actually abusing children as well. And I think when people start to wake up and realise that these people are doing things like that, then that's when we can kind of take a step forward. But what do you do? What's your solution, Kevin, if these people are caught? What do we do with them?
Well, the problem is for every honest person in the system, there's a corrupt 2 or 3 other ones who are making money off the corruption. So you can't really rely on the system for justice. It's compromised too much. This is what we found working with not just Native people, but those who have had their children apprehended, those who are being targeted by the system. They can't get justice within it. We've got to start creating alternative means of justice, and this is why we talk about common law courts. We have the right under common law to perform citizens' arrest if we know there's priests that are raping children right now and the police don't do anything about it. We have the right to go into those churches, and in fact, some of the Native people in Canada have done that. They've walked into churches, taken the robes off these child-raping priests, and banished them from their lands. That's the kind of thing that people have the necessity, not just the right, but the necessity to do that if the cops aren't going to help us and keep their oath of being public servants. So I think direct action is always the way to go. It was only when we began occupying churches in Canada that the government began to make noises about issuing apologies about the Indian schools, because the churches really fear occupations on Sundays. They're really worried about the blow to their public image and their finances. So you got to take those direct actions. It's the only thing that ever gets the results. Okay,
how many years do you think we have left with the church?
You mean as an institution?
Yeah.
I think it's collapsing before our eyes. 30,000 people left the Catholic Church in Austria alone last year. All the mainstream churches are collapsing, and they know that, and that's why they're trying to hold on to their revenue for as long as they can. But I think, on the other hand, if we don't look at the cause of these things, it'll just replicate itself again. We've got to really do it's time for a real spiritual renaissance, And the good thing about these things is it allows us a chance to do that,
I do think you're right there. The church is collapsing, and I've always seen the local priest in the local church as the bank manager, the branch bank manager for the Vatican, which is head office. And, their job is to get the money in, and they have a target to reach, and then, the bishop gets involved, because the bishop is the area manager. And we do get reports locally, because myself and Steve live in a village area over here in Ireland, and we get local reports on where the money's gone. And one of the comments on the statement that I got had funds to the bishop. It was something like that, funds to the bishop. I said, why is that person giving funds to the bishop? But then again, you probably know we have a program over here we did have called Father Ted.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
I've heard about that. I'm trying to remember what that's about. Yeah.
Right, okay. Well, I'd recommend the next time you come over to Ireland, or if you can get it over in Canada, to get a few copies of Father Ted, because it really, really took the pay out of the Catholic religion. It did really, and the priests. And really, and I wouldn't mind if they kind of caricatured the priests to a certain extent, but there's so many similarities of priests that we have come across that you could say, yeah, there is a priest like that, and there is a priest like that. So it's a comedy, by the way. It wasn't serious, it's a comedy, but it's a very, very good comedy based on the Irish churches and the priests and what they go up to and the different types of priests. But okay, Kevin, well listen, it's near that time. I'm going to pass you over to Steve, and Steve can do the roundup there.
Okay, do the roundup. I feel like it should be on a horse or something, going out into the wilderness. Do the roundup. No, it's normally at the end, Kevin, as you may know, that we just kind of ask you to give us out your website again, the two websites, and if you have any closing statements, that you want to make, you're more than free to do it now. But say get the websites out there. If you have a book or a DVD, any promotion that you want to get out, now is the time.
Yeah, just to remind people, hiddennolonger.com and itccs.org. If you have any evidence or you want to work with our network and our campaign, please write to me, hiddenfromhistory1@gmail.com. And I just encourage people to realize that it's in your hands. It's not so much what I'm doing as what we all do together in this. So it depends entirely on how much people respond and get involved. That's going to be the measure of our success. So I thank you all. Thanks especially, guys, for having me on your show again. I really appreciate it. And I'll certainly keep you updated, and definitely again in the spring when I come back, hope to meet more people in Ireland.
Brilliant stuff. All right, Kevin, well, listen, thanks a lot for coming on to the show and being honest with your answers there and the questions that I sent you over there. They were questions sent in from listeners, so we felt we had to ask you them, and you answered them as best way you could there, which is appreciated. All right, Kevin, just stay with us there for a minute, and we'll be back after.
Can I just say very quick? Yeah, thanks, Kevin, for coming on. It's been much a learning experience, and one of our listeners just said, tell Kevin to keep safe, and thanks for the interview. Okay.
Well, thanks to you all, and anytime.
All right, Kevin, just stay there with us for a minute, and we'll be back after this.
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYM.com, CNSradio.me.com, and ICRadioNetwork.com.
Okay, I'm not quite sure what happened there at the end with the jingle. I don't know if it came out live over the air, but that was a little bit of the Monkeys there, I'm a Believer, and a very, very fantastic interview there, just in the bag with Kevin Annett. Really, really enjoyed that. Very good guy.
Okay, so we have Sean Whitewash on the line. I don't know if some people remember Sean. Sean is one of our listeners who gives us kind of a roving report of what's going on and what's happening. And he's just back from America. So good evening, Sean. How are you doing?
I'm fine, pretty good, thank you. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. Well, Sean, there's a couple of things we're going to be talking about tonight. MMS is going to be one of them. But before we do that, obviously you've just been over in America recently and you've just got back. Do you want to give us an update on, what you've seen and what's going on? Any news over there?
No, nothing really. The only thing is going on right now is basically they're just talking about the attacks that's happening, the embassies and all that, and then all the drama that goes with it, really.
Which attacks are these?
No, the embassy attacks that went on there last week,
Embassy attacks?
Ah, yeah, you remember like the embassy where some of the Americans were.
Oh,
that's right. The
ambassador
got killed and all that.
Oh, you're talking about this movie that caused all the aggro.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, okay. See, I don't really watch TV very often. So even though it does be on, certain things do be on the news, I don't get them because I just don't watch TV. So, but I do know about this, obviously, video or this movie being made. And even, I believe the actress who was in the movie is now suing the guy who did it because she didn't know that she's going to be part of that in the first place. Now, I haven't seen this movie, but, I said to my partner earlier today, what would happen if somebody made a movie like that against the Catholic people, against the Irish people? Would we be out on the streets burning flags and stuff like that?
Thanks to the fluoride now.
Huh?
I would say thanks to the fluoride, that's true. Yes.
Yeah, thanks to the fluoride, I don't think we'd be out burning flags. We'll probably just go, well, sure, what can you do?
Well, I mean, if somebody wants to make a film about the Catholic Church and all the goings on, chances are it's probably going to be very, very factual and very true.
Yeah, I'd say it would be.
Yeah.
Okay, Sean, we're just losing you on the quality there in your phone call. Okay, so apart from the embassies, is there anything else over there that you've noticed? You there, Sean?
Okay, we seem to be having technical difficulties again. Sean, I'm not sure if you're hearing us okay, but your audio. Okay.
Oh, okay. So
that answers that question.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we'll get Sean back in a minute. I know he's having problems with his broadband. His broadband quality was very bad, and he phoned in there. But we'll try Sean again on the broadband. Hey, Sean, are you there?
Can you hear me?
We can, yeah. Obviously, it's a little bit.
How are you? Very choppy.
It's a bit choppy, all right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bit choppy.
I'm here. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, no worries at all.
Yeah,
So apart from the embassy stuff, what else is going on, Sean?
Oh. Okay, let me get back.
Okay, Sean.
Not too much really. I was kind of busy actually because I was moving back. I was really busy. Other than that, I said, let me call you back because this line is not working.
No, the quality is quite bad there. Okay, Sean, we'll talk to you in a minute there if you want to call us back. Cheers.
Yeah, I wonder now, maybe Sean's getting targeted, or maybe it's just a bad line, because I know Kevin rang in as well, and we had a good interview with Kevin, no problems.
Okay, well we'll try and get Sean in again.
Hello, yeah, hello.
Hi,
no,
Sean. That's better now. The quality is hopefully it stays like that now.
Yeah.
That's it. Were you using an internet phone that time or?
No, before that I was calling. I was a mobile number I called you from.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's probably something got to do with it. Okay, so just going back to what we said because we were breaking up there. What besides the embassy stuff? What else have you found that's going on?
No, not enough for that. Not the stuff is just going on. It's going on behind the scenes, basically. That's what's happening, really. Not really known to the general public. Right.
Okay. I see what you mean. And obviously, you're back over. Are you back over now permanently, or are you going to be going back to the States?
Oh, I'd be probably back and forth, yeah, with business and all that, yeah.
Okay, so a few more things to do. Now, we said that we were going to get you on as well, and we were going to talk about MMS. And you said that you're going to talk about your experience with MMS. We haven't updated the listeners as to myself and Steve, but you shoot away, Sean, and tell us what you know about MMS and what you're doing with it, and then we can throw in our few cents.
Well, basically, at the moment, I'm not using MMS at the moment. I'm only using it every now and then as I need to. I'm not taking it on a regular basis, right?
Okay.
And I found it very good, actually, because once you start taking it and you get your body used to it and you build yourself up with the drops and everything, when you have to go back on it later on, your body adapts to it faster, and you actually results, the healing process actually is a lot faster.
Now, did you take MMS for an ailment, or did you just take it as a precautionary thing?
No, I took it as an ailment because I really took it because of the inflammation that I had in my back.
Right, okay, and that's what you took. And how did the MMS do for you on that?
Well, first of all, what happened was when I started taking it, I felt I was going backwards because what was happening was actually taking all the heavy metals out of my body, and that's what it does. And of course, steroid injection is a heavy metal, or something like it anyway.
Yeah.
And then after about 3 weeks, then I started to come around. I started to improve because it was getting bad. I could hardly walk. And then after that, after about 3 weeks, I started recovering. I recovered very quickly. After about 6 weeks, I was in great shape. I was very healthy and everything, you know. And then after that, then once I got up to maximum amount of doses that it could be taken, then I stepped it back down to about maybe 8 drops a day for about 3 months, and then I dropped it back down to about 4 because I only felt I only needed 3 or 4 drops a day because the body was that healthy.
Yeah, yeah. And go ahead.
Yeah, now after you will get a sensation after a while, like you feel like you're very fit. You put it this way, your lungs are able to process the oxygen a lot better than what normally does. You feel like you're breathing pure oxygen. You know, you've got a lot of energy. I mean, you feel like you're almost like an athlete. You know, because you're increasing the alkaline level in the body up to about 88.5.
Okay, and I mean it's brilliant for people who are beginning to take it. I mean, I know some people are taking it from a precautionary point of view, and other people are taking them because they don't feel well and the ailments. What would you? Obviously, I think it's down to people's metabolism as to what they can manage on the job level.
Well, actually, an awful lot of it actually is to do with your liver. I mean, if you've had hepatitis C or B or some liver or you drank a lot, then it's going to take you an awful lot longer to process and to get up to the level of drops that you need when using MMS.
Right, okay. Well, I'm taking the kind of the slow boat to China route with MMS at the moment. And I'm not doing the kind of gazumping over the 2 week period. I'm kind of taking a gradual approach and bit by bit.
Which is fine, yeah. There's nothing wrong with that, yeah. You know, take it, I mean, whatever floats your boat, you know, everybody is different. Everybody's like me, even me and my brother are two different people. I mean, he can tolerate so much, but I can tolerate a way a lot more, you know.
Yeah.
He can, yeah.
And I think you have to be careful. I think your body will tell you with MMS as to what you can handle. And if you're feeling queasy or sick, then reduce the drops down to a level that doesn't make you queasy.
Yeah, but you might feel a small bit sick, but you don't take them when you're nauseous and throwing up and all. You just take them when you feel like you've touched a bad, you feel sick. You feel like maybe touch a bad flu or something, but then you don't. But you'll get over that, you know. It's a hump, as to say. And then once you get to the maximum level of drops, then you can see you don't stay there. You drop down to maybe 8 a day or 4, depending, you know, depending on the person, you know how healthy they are.
And what's the maximum for you? What's your maximum level of drops?
Well, when I started at 2 or 3 drops, and I felt the effect more or less within 2 hours. And then I worked my way up to, I think the maximum you can take is 45 drops a day, 15 drops per dose, which is 45 drops a day. Now, well, you can spread that over 8 doses a day. You don't necessarily have to do 3 times a day. You could do one every hour if you have to. I mean, if you go on to the Jim Hubble website and you go on to the different protocols that he has, Protocol 1000 and 2000, you know, he'll tell you, you know, once you build yourself up, you know, to the maximum level, you stay there for about a week and then you come back down, you know, because then your body tells you that you don't need it anymore. You know, even your kidneys will tell you.
Okay, we have a message from a person on the TNS chat facility saying that they're afraid to take MMS from the stories that they've heard. But, I mean, we've all heard, you know, different stories on, you know, MMS. And one of the things I said, you know, I'll pass you over to Steve in a minute, but one of the things I've heard is obviously there's a guy on YouTube talking about the FDA, and the FDA have banned MMS and everything else.
And that's right, yeah, because they actually consider it an industrial bleach. Because sodium chloride is actually used for bleaching wood. That's right, yeah.
Well, sodium chloride turns into chlorine dioxide when you put the citric acid, so it actually becomes a different chemical.
Yeah, in actual fact, when you put it into water, it actually comes in what we call a colloidal. In other words, it's a gas suspended in water when you do that, you see. And therefore, it's a lot easier to absorb into the body, into the bloodstream. You see. And what that does then, when it gets into the bloodstream, it makes the bloodstream, basically the products that you get is hypochlorite septic acid, and you get and sodium, and they're the byproducts really, which is salt.
Right. Okay. So it's all good stuff, really.
Yeah, but I mean, it takes the body a while because we've been living for how many years, and we got so many toxins in our body from the environment and who knows and what not. So it's going to take a while to fight to get all that out of your system.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And it takes a while. And as we were told,
and also it's very good. So if you did do drugs or anything like that, it also helps clear all that history of you doing that as well.
Yeah. Well, as we were told that if you do get sick or have diarrhea, and the other thing as well, the other side effect seems to be flatulence as well, for some reason. But if you do get sick or diarrhea, it's not the actual MMS that's causing it; it's the MMS flushing your system of the toxins.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You know.
Well, I found one benefit from doing the MMS was that I was actually, because I was doing the MMS, I was actually more regular than I have been in my whole life. And it actually improves your digestion actually over the long term.
Yeah, definitely, Steve. Sorry.
Because what it actually does is actually promotes the good bacteria, the flora that you should have in your gut, and it helps eliminate the bad bacteria, the anaerobic bacteria.
Steve.
Yeah, I can hand on heart 100% corroborate what Sean was saying about making you regular. Yeah, I set me watch by it now.
Well, that's brilliant that it actually does do that. You know, I mean, it's all the benefits. Now, as I said before on the show, that there was a lady, a host on one of the radio stations which I spoke to, that she was diagnosed. She said to me that she was diagnosed with cancer at the age of 22. And obviously they wanted to give her the chemo, and she said, well, no, I'm going to go and take the MMS route. Now she's 44. So, and that's one of so many stories out there.
So MMS has been around for that long?
MMS has been around for
It's been around since the 80s, I think, as far as I know.
Yeah, it's obviously been around such a long time. And obviously, the drug companies are not interested in promoting this for obvious reasons, because they won't make money from it. So, like the hemp oil, marijuana type of thing, they'll start making it illegal, like the St. John's wort, which they took away. Because
well, actually, funny enough, I should just mention it. There was a thing there on the activist post about a person that took cannabis oil or hemp oil to cure cancer of the bowel.
Yeah, I mean, hemp is very, very good for a lot of things. What was the video I put up on Facebook for people? Grandma smoking dope or something.
Oh, should grandma smoke?
Yeah, and it's all about these grannies now who are say grannies, but elderly people who are having health problems, and they're actually smoking cannabis, and they're feeling so much better, and their health is improving by smoking cannabis.
It's probably less than the effects, so that's how
I don't know, but they seem to be very happy on camera. That's all I'll say. I'm very hungry as well. You get the munchies. But for the people who are curious about MMS, obviously you can contact Reverend Rashers on TNS, and you'll be able to talk to Reverend Rashers. I'm sure he'll put your mind at rest if you're thinking of doing MMS. But go and do what we did. Look at the science of it. Look at people who are taking it. Speak to people who have taken it. And go on the internet and check it out before you decide to do anything. But myself and Steve, there's no point just promoting MMS if we didn't try it ourselves. So I've been on it. On Tuesday it would be 2 weeks. Steve, you're about 3 weeks now on it.
3 weeks, yeah. And I mean, I have to say, I think I said it last week, there was a couple of days there while I was, I don't know if I mentioned it actually on the radio, but I did say it to Alan in the course of conversation, that there was a couple of days last week when I'm generally kind of very tired and lethargic for no real apparent reason. Like I can take all these vitamins, but I'm generally kind of by 3 o'clock in the afternoon I've kind of hit the wall. But I did notice a couple of days last week where I had 3 o'clock had came and went, and I was at home and all, and I was able to do more things at home. And it was only when I stopped and thought about it, I said, well, Jesus, I've kind of been all tired for a long time. Could this be anything to do with the MMS ridding my system of all these, all this bad stuff? But I tell you, as Alan said, and Sean is saying it there, we obviously wouldn't be telling people about this if we hadn't tried it ourselves. And obviously there's going to be people who will say, oh, you'll take that and it'll kill you and you'll drop dead, Well, 2 weeks for Alan, 3 weeks for me. Sean has been using it for a good long time as well, and up to 45 drops a day, and we're all still in the land of the living.
Exactly.
Yeah. Very
So
true.
I think the issue is people say, oh, it's very caustic. But as you say, when you put it in water, you're diluting it, and if it turns into a gas, then it can't really be caustic if it's going to turn into a gas anyway.
Yeah, that's true. The only thing as well, but you should do is, well, after a while, you'll find you'll have a very bad aversion to it. You don't want to take it. So the best, if you put a pinch of bread soda in with it, it'll have to lessen the taste of the MMS if you're drinking it down.
Well, you can.
I find it hard to take.
Yeah, well, you can take apple juice and cranberry juice. You just have to make sure it doesn't contain vitamin C, because vitamin C in one of these juices will neutralise the effect of MMS.
Yeah, it's boric acid. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, exactly. So you can kind of take the taste away, because after a period of time it doesn't actually taste nice. There was a message here on the TNS. One of the lads said that it's very important. Let me just find it here. Which in a minute.
Yeah, go on. Okay, Alan's going to do his bit of scrolling, but no, I mean,
okay, I got it.
Okay.
Sorry, Steve, that was very quick.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
The listener said flatulence is a good sign in healing, indicating that poisons are leaving the body. That is why farting happens in humans, to keep it in, and so after when you fart, it clears out the system. So
I nearly cleared the car yesterday.
So everything is MMS, with the family. That's MMS.
Yeah. and maybe you can bottle it and you can use it for gas. What I think.
Oh no! What we'll do will be arrested. They'll put a tax on us. It'd be because of greenhouse gases and all that kind of stuff. They'll be putting a tax on it.
Just to say the Crown copyright, that actually happened yesterday. I'm not making that up. I was in the car with the family yesterday, and let's just say all the windows were opened, and there was a barrage of insults thrown at me. But all I could, I don't know. I just had to, accept it. But if that's part of my healing and my cleaning out process, well, happy days. They just have to put up with it. Once I'm not infecting them by them breathing what's coming.
Well, it has to come out of your system. If you have something in your system, it has to come out. Whether it's you getting sick, whether it's diarrhea, whether it's flatulence. MMS will find a way to get it out, and it depends which way it chooses to get it out and how bad it is. But I've seen, I've had a couple of extra trips to the toilet when I first started taking MMS. I think after about 3 days, 4 days, that's when it started, and affected me for about a day, and then after that I was okay. So there must have been something there that shouldn't be there, and obviously MMS did its job. And but I think, Steve, you're just waiting, aren't you?
Yeah.
Steve's complaining that he's not healthy.
No.
Aren't you? He's saying, I'm waiting for something to happen, and nothing's happened. No. I said to him before the show starts, I said, maybe you're healthy. And he goes, I don't believe that.
Well, no. It's just, from what I've seen and what I've heard, that when the clearing out process begins, like from years of abusing your body, not so much abusing it, but eating the wrong foods and eating a lot of sweet things, and you would have parasites, little small parasites, or even worms inside your gut. And from what we've seen, when you use the MMS after a couple of weeks, that you may or may not, but I was kind of focusing on the may, see little worms, like a tapeworm or something like that, come, and it would come out in your stool. So I haven't noticed anything like that yet. But I
don't think you should, because most of the food in Ireland is quite good. Unless you live in a third world country, then you might expect to see that kind of stuff.
All right. Oh well, maybe that explains it, then, Sean. Well, thanks for putting my mind at rest.
Okay. We'll have to sort something out. So what's your plan, Sean? Is there anything on the cards at the moment for you, or is there any agenda that we need to know about, or that you've come across that you want to tell us about?
Well, nothing really. Just be careful and watch out for the next few weeks. Because things in the Middle East could blow up, and then you have the surprise. Then who knows? Japan and Russia might start firing stuff at each other.
Well,
but that's all.
Yeah, I believe China and Japan were upsetting each other there recently.
Japan, I should say, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, because they were upsetting each other recently, Japan and China. And obviously with this, there seems to be an awful lot going on. Now, on next week's show, we do have John Moore, who runs his own radio show over in America.
Oh, you're having him on? That's great, yeah. Oh, great.
Yeah, John's going to be on next week. And the plan of attack, obviously he has 4 insiders who don't know each other, who are coming back with the same information. And even John said, in the next few weeks, it's really going to it's going to go off, basically.
Yeah. Oh, it's going to get serious, yeah, because after the Jewish holidays, they'll probably do something. And of course, I mean, as I said before, the weather's a lot cooler over there now as well, and so they'll be able to do a lot of tube movements and all that,
Yeah, exactly, and there's so much going on down in the Gulf as well. And ships and the whole lot. So there is an awful lot going on. We'll get a much better idea. We're going to have Drake on the show as well in a few weeks' time. He said that, there's no problem coming on the show as long as he can get on the show, because he feels that there's an awful lot going to be happening. And we won't really know. He won't really know from day to day when it comes to that time, because they talk about this October surprise. Have you heard anything else about this October surprise?
Yeah, well, they're saying they're talking about that in the different channels, right? Yeah, but I mean, they're giving different. They're giving it's all over the board. They say it's the first week, it could be the third week. Who knows? Who knows? A lot of it could be disinformation as well. To put people off.
A lot of disinformation, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, disinformation. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so they'll be coming out with a few bits and pieces. I would say, and I still say to people, that make sure you have food in, and make sure you have fuel in, because, the 3 things: shelter, fuel, and food. Because if it does go off, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Do we all do any of us know really if it's going to go off? But with all the talk of, what people are saying, the information that's out there, the likes of John Moore, the likes of Drake, and other people coming out and saying that there's a lot going on. Then,
but another thing you should also have as well, actually, you should also have a very good water filter as well, because, I mean, if the electricity goes off, there'll be no pumping of water, so you need something where you can purify water. Well,
there'll be no pumping of water from the local water system anyway, because we've experienced that before, where the water has gone off in the house. And basically, because of the grid, the electricity grid being knocked out, obviously their systems aren't going to be working. Now, you would think they'd have a backup power supply, but that's what happened. We had a complete failure of the grid, and the water stopped working. So, again, stock up on water, make sure you have water. And if you have, as Sean said, a filtering system, very important to have that as well. And what you can do, and Steve come up with this, which is a good idea. If you remember this, Steve, we have a 5-filter reverse osmosis watering filter system, myself and Steve. We have the same one. So technically what you could do is actually fill that up with water, and it will filter, and you'll be able to get water out of it, which is something that I didn't think about, but Steve thought about.
This would be like the rainwater.
Rainwater, yeah.
Yeah, you could collect the rainwater, and instead of just running your household water through your reverse osmosis filter, just get the rainwater into a barrel or some container, get it up high enough to give some pressure. And I
was going to say that. You need some head pressure on that. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So for people, if you don't have a filtering system, the thing is, it's all about money really, and I know people are struggling, and there's evictions still going on, and people don't have the money, and it is very difficult. It's difficult for all of us. We're all failing, and we're all struggling. And earlier on, I told you about the credit card situation with Aldi. And we are all struggling, we are all failing it, but if you can get some kind of filter system at least to get the fluoride out, or at best take most of it out. Because somebody said to me during the week, I was speaking to a person who wanted to know about MMS, and she said, oh yeah, I boil my kettle. I do boil my kettle before I drink the water. And I said, but that's no good. It doesn't take the fluoride out. Boiling your kettle doesn't take the fluoride out of the water. You need a proper filter system. It actually
concentrates it.
Yeah, you need a proper filter system. But that's really from our side what we've experienced. But Sean, thanks a lot for coming on the show. Much appreciated as usual.
I'll talk to you guys.
Yeah, you take care of yourself, and we'll talk to you soon again, Sean.
All right, bye.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks, Sean.
Take care. Good night.
Bye. Okay, so that was Sean Whitewash, who's a listener on the show. He comes on now and again and gives us an update on what's going on. He does travel over to New York for work and just lets us know what's happening over there. I'm looking forward to having John on next week, John Moore, because, as I said, he has insider contacts. I do listen to his show now and again.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm going to sit back here, feet up on the table, arms folded, and watch the battle of the interviewers commence.
Well,
who'll be asking? Will you be asking the questions, and will he answer your question with a question?
I don't know. Well, one of the questions here at TNS was, does Drake have credibility? Well, I'm just curious.
Does anyone have credibility?
Well, that's the thing. How can we prove this? It's very hard to prove it. So what I'm going to be interested in is just hear what he has to say. And if it resonates with you, then, then fine. If it doesn't resonate with you, then fine also. Just let's hear what they have to say. I mean, that's the whole thing about open your mind. It's to open your mind, let the people talk about the information they have, and you make a decision based on what they say, whether that works for you.
What's that saying again about entertaining a talk without accepting it?
Yeah. Well, that's a good sign of intelligence anyway. It's like being able to debate a subject without actually agreeing on it. Yeah. And not getting into an argument now, getting into a debate about it. So I think I think it's going to be quite interesting. And we'll have him on we'll try and get an hour and a half out of John if we can. And it'd be fantastic. Yeah, somebody said here that, what do you lads think of Benjamin Fulford? Will you try and get him on? We've actually emailed Benjamin Fulford a couple of times already, and we've got no joy in getting Ben on. Now, I'm sure he's a very busy guy with everything that's going on. We do try. There are people who are trying to get on, and we just can't seem to get to them. And we're using all the kind of sources that we have to try and get to them, to get them on. But, you can bring a horse to water and blah-de-blah, but that's about it, really. That's all we can do. And Lord Vapor says, Tunisia was the beginning of the Arab Spring. Yeah, well, as I say, we're going to be seeing an awful lot in the next few weeks. I think you're going to have to batten down the hatches. And we'll just see what happens. Just make sure you're prepared and keep an eye on things. And, there are people going to be probably asking questions when it all goes off. So just be prepared as much as you can.
Make sure you have a good fence. That's all I'll say, because, you might have to sit on it like we do. But have we tried Steve Quayle? I'm not sure. Is that a person or is it a dish? I'm guessing obviously it's a person. I'm just trying to be humorous. Steve Quayle, Alan, do we know who Steve Quayle is? I don't know. I've never heard of Steve Quayle.
Don't know. We've got TRP on TNS just saying Drake made a couple of announcements that did not come true. See, the problem with this, people, people are putting the pressure on the likes of Fulford, David Wilcox, Drake, and they're saying, we want a date. And when things don't happen, they go, oh, it didn't happen, and you said it's going to happen. The people, the powers to be don't work with dates. They work with windows of opportunity. So if an event happens and it creates a window of opportunity, that's when they'll do it. And it's just because of the pressure that's been put on these people to say, give us a date. I kind of understand that. And so I'm not going to turn around, because plans change. Plans do change. The cabal do change their mind and might put things back for a few weeks or a few months. So don't be surprised if that happens again. So although we're saying watch out for the next few weeks and people are saying that, they might turn around and say, too many people know about this. We'll wait for another window of opportunity and then do it again. So that's just the way it works. So don't be too focused on the dates. It's when the window of opportunity presents itself, that's when they tend to do things. So just to kind of be aware of that, I think it'd be the best way to approach it. But we'll see what they have to say. Let them in. It's free speech. Let them have their say and see what the information they give us. And then, if it resonates with you, then fair enough.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I know a lot of people have problems with what Drake Bailey is saying, or the fact that some of the things that he has predicted have not come to pass. But as Alan has just kind of explained there, there could be several different reasons for that. But at the end of the day, I think the man has something to say, and the fact that we can get him on, it will be a missed opportunity if we didn't. So I think get him on, see what he has to say. If he speaks something that we're interested in and we want to take it on board, we can put it, as someone said to us before, have a box in your mind, kind of a, who was it who said that about the box? I cannot remember. About your box, and whatever Drake says, put it into that box, and kind of just leave it there. At some point in time, you may need to revisit that box and move it out, and kind of say, it was rubbish, and just dismiss the thought. But I mean, he's going to be on the show anyway. So as we say every week, the phone line will be open. Anyone, and the chat facility is always open there as well, and we do always read out questions for the guests. And if anyone has any questions at all for Drake Bailey, ring in.
I know we had problems before with the phone dialing in, but that was 2 phone calls from Sean and Kevin, and the quality was very good. I have to say, I'm quite happy with the phone in there. So don't be shy to phone into the show if you want to actually speak to a guest. Like as I say, if you want to speak to John personally and directly on the phone, then obviously give us a ring next week, or whichever the guest is, give us a shout, let us know. And just ring in, 046-927-1212. No, sorry, 046-927-1212. 12, that was 122 too many.
I like that, I'm going to say LV. LV just said there. I'll grill him if you get him on. And then a celebrity roast of Drake Bailey. Yeah, celebrity roast. I remember watching those years ago.
Okay, remember, we only have an hour and a half when we have a guest on, so make sure you have your questions ready and have a maximum of, 2 or 3. Just in case, because you could have an open-ended question and it could go on for about 15 minutes. So just to be aware of that. But that's really the news from our side. As I say, myself and Steve are just taking the MMS, doing what we're doing, and there's no other news. I think there's a few links that have come in, which we'll get out during the week. We don't know, we'll have to speak to Vin about the TNS player. We don't know why the TNS player wasn't working tonight for some strange reason, but thanks to the guys at TNS who are broadcasting.
Yeah, I think a big thumbs up and a thank you to Freeman Jack there at TNS. He's looking after that. I think Vin was kind of absent there for a short while, but Vin has communicated with us within the past couple of minutes on Skype there, and has just said we're going to just check everything and see exactly what went wrong to prevent it from happening again. But yes, Crown Copyright, it is TNS time. I'm not sure who Vin has on with him tonight, but as per usual, when you get fed up listening to us at 9 o'clock, instead of switching on the TV for the 9 o'clock news, switch over to TNS and shoot the breeze with Vin. As I say, I don't know who he has on tonight, but it's always interesting anyway.
Okay, and just a quickie, if you are ordering Marcus's book online, please remember to select the actual location for delivery. It's €12 for Ireland, $15.50 for the UK and Europe, and €18, I think, for the rest of the world. Okay, there's a few people actually ordered the book and didn't select the shipping from outside of Ireland. So obviously we issue a refund and just let them know, because obviously it costs more to ship across the water and obviously over to the States and stuff like that. So if you're going to order Marcus's book online, just be aware of the shipping and just select the country, select the option that suits you, if you can do that. Where is it coming from? Outer space? Yes. Yes. Well, we are in Ireland, and it is expensive to ship it. Believe me, and the prices have gone up on the post.
That includes the book, the book as well. It's not just $15.50 for the shipping.
Yeah, no, that includes the book as well, by the way. $15.50 is the book and the shipping. It's not just the shipping.
And as Alan says, it has to go across the water, so we have to wrap it up in waterproof material and send it on its way.
For $15.50, I jump in the round boat myself and go over and bring it to you. Okay, well listen, have a good week. Stay safe. If there's any information you come across, any links, by all means send them over to us and we'll have a look at them. And we'll be taking the MMS. John Moore's on next week. Looking forward to that. So for myself, take care, stay safe. Alan James, good night.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay, so from Stephen George as well. Great show. It really flew past. So yeah, TNS time. And we'll catch you all next week. So take care. Bye bye.
Open your mind.